Listen, it's not your parents' job to motivate you. You have to move past that. It isn't their job. It might be their job to role model for you. It might be their job to live in front of you. It might be their job to make sure that you're safe or healthy. It might be their job to make sure that you have food. It might be their job to make sure that you stay out of trouble the best they can. It is not your parents' job to motivate you. You have got to give up on that thought. If you're waiting for somebody else to motivate you, if you're waiting for somebody forward, you might spend your entire life waiting and literally watch the entire world go by. You might watch your whole world just leave you. It might live right in front of you. I want you to think for a moment, every single day with what you're doing, what you're saying, what you're eating, what you're acting, what you're not doing, everything you're doing every day is almost like you're writing a page as an author. And the book is the story of your life. And there's going to come a day that you're going to have to read that story. Be careful who you let hold the pen. Be careful what you write. Are you going to enjoy reading it someday? Are you going to like it? It's not your parents' job to motivate you. They can't motivate you. No external force can motivate you. An external force can scare you. That's not the same thing. When your parents say, clean your room or you're in trouble. When your parents say, do your work and then you can go hang out with your friends. Those things aren't motivating. Those things are threats. Do you understand the difference? Here's what I mean. You're motivated to go hang out with your friends. The parent steps in and says, do this before you hang out with your friends. Don't confuse that with motivation. That's fear of not being able to do what you're motivated to go do. Nobody could motivate you. You can't be motivated from the outside. Motivation comes from the inside. Motivation comes from the heart. Motivation comes from passion. Motivation comes from the mind. What do you want to accomplish? That's what motivates you. Who do you want to be? That's what motivates you. External forces don't motivate you. All right, so speaking of motivation, part of my motivation this week is I loved hanging out with you guys last week. I loved our time last week. I loved the questions that you put. I loved some of the messages you sent me and the emails you sent. And I wanted to specifically say hi to Sandro Piamba. Sandro, thank you. Your email, your message, it touched my heart. So thank you. It means the world to me what you wrote, and I'm so proud of you. So thank you. Now this week, I'm going to answer a bunch of the questions that came in last week, and this week you can put in the box down here. You can write questions for this week, and I'll get to absolutely as many of them as I can. And I've got a whole stack of notes between questions from last week and things that I wanted to make sure that we talked about this week. So thank you for the time. I hope you're enjoying this time. It's an interesting moment, isn't it? Like this whole thing of COVID and this whole thing of coronavirus and this whole thing of social distancing, quarantining, all words that we didn't use a month ago, things that we didn't talk about a month ago, and things that we might never talk about again anytime in the near future. We have no idea. This is a short-term change. But don't let the change short-term not have a long-term impact on you. It's interesting. My son's 18. His name's Gavin. He's an incredible young man. And Gavin's a senior in high school. And schools in Portland, I live in Portland, Oregon, schools in Portland closed for a couple of weeks a few weeks ago. And then after a few days of being closed for a couple of weeks, our governor announced being closed until the end of April, so about a month. And then a few days ago, our governor announced through the rest of the school year. So Gavin, he's a wonderful young man, senior year of high school doesn't have a prom. Senior year of high school doesn't have a graduating ceremony right now. It's an interesting time. And I asked him, I said, Gavin, what do you think about that? Did you know it's okay to have thoughts about things? It's okay to have feelings about things. It's okay to be discouraged by something. It's okay to be sad by something. It's okay to be excited about something. It's okay to be happy about something. And you know what's interesting about feelings? What I've learned is it's okay to have more than one at the same time. It's okay to have different views at the same time. It's okay to look down. I mean, part of me is frustrated about what's happening right now. Another part of me is really excited about what's happening right now. And both of those truths can be true at the same time. Both of those things can be true simultaneously. It doesn't make one right and one wrong. You see, life is funny, and there's lots of feelings, and there is no right, there is no wrong when it comes to that. It's simply a feeling. Now, remember, they can also simply just be feelings too. It might be something that's short term. It might be something I feel that way for 5 minutes. It might be that I feel one way today, and I wake up tomorrow and feel totally different about it. That's okay too. I don't know that that goes away in life. Now, I'm 39 years old. The majority of you are somewhere between about 13 and about 20 or 21. I still have those feelings. I still have a day where I go, man, I felt this way yesterday and I feel totally different today. All right, here's some of the things that I wanted to make sure we talked about. Remember, I want you to think about a car. Think about your favorite car. Think about what you would love to drive someday. It might be the car that you're driving, and it might be the car that you wish you were driving. I want you to think about the windshield, right? Like that great big piece of glass that you stare out to look forward. And I also want you to think on that windshield, right here, about in the middle, up towards the top, is a little mirror, and it's a rear view mirror. And of course, that rear view mirror is up there so you can see it, so you can see behind you. And I want you to think about your life, and I want you to think about the way you live your life. I think that a lot of life has to do with thinking about driving a car. And what I mean by that is this: you spend the majority of your time looking out the windshield. You spend the majority of your time looking forward, not backward. Maybe you're like me and you made a mistake with something. Maybe you're like me and maybe yesterday or last week or a month ago or 20 minutes ago, you said something that you shouldn't have said. Or maybe you did something you shouldn't have done. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe you weren't the very best friend you could be to somebody. You know, sometimes I look down and I think about my actions, or I think about my thoughts or my words, and I'll think sometimes that wasn't the very best of me. Well, that's okay. There's a couple of steps to that, by the way. When that happens, own it. So here's one of the things that I was taught by somebody who worked for me for a really long time. And she's an important person in my life, though she doesn't work for me anymore. And she used to say this. She would say, Cody, when you mess up, I want you to fess up. And man, that stuck with me. When you mess up, you fess up. When you mess something up, you just own it. You just say it. You know, one of the secrets of the world, one of the greatest secrets on earth, is that when you make a mistake, if you're willing to own it, if you're willing to say to somebody, and sometimes it means having to swallow your pride or your ego a little bit, though when you're willing to say, you know what, friend, mom, dad, boss, teacher, sibling, I really screwed this up. Like I totally screwed that up. You know, I was talking to someone the other day. Have you ever said something that wasn't true? And the moment you said it, you knew it wasn't true. The world might call that a lie. I don't know. I mean, sometimes to me, lies are things that you do and you say them on purpose and you think about them ahead of time. I'm talking about, I was just having a conversation with somebody and I said something that in the moment, as soon as I said it, I was like, whoa, that's not true. That actually didn't happen at all. I don't know why I said that. And it wasn't, I didn't think about it ahead of time. It didn't win me any points. It didn't mean anything. I didn't need to say it. It just simply wasn't true. And I stopped and I kind of did this and I said, that's not true. I have no idea why I said that. And the person that I was talking to looked at me and said, I've done the same thing. And I'll tell you, from there forward, our entire conversation looked different. I was a little bit embarrassed. For certain, I was a little bit embarrassed, of course. Though what I've learned is that when you mess up, you fess up. And the secret of the world that I was about to tell you is this. If you're willing to own your mistakes, you can literally go as far as you want in life. I don't even think it's about owning your success. I don't think it's about owning the things that you do right. Everyone's happy to own those things. I'm talking about owning the things you do wrong. If you're willing to do that, the world comes to your, so let me give you an example. Let's say that there's a time that you did something wrong and your parents found out about it, or a teacher or somebody who was in like a boss, somebody who was in charge of you, if you will, and they almost come to you and they do this trick. They're like, do you have anything to tell me? And you're like, I don't know if I have anything. What are you talking about? What'd you find? I get it, right? I'm a parent. I've done the same silly trick. You know, what do you have to say about this? Here's what I've learned. If you're confronted on something, you ought to own it and deal with it. Tell the truth. Though a better choice would be to bring it up before somebody else does. If you know it's wrong, just go to that person. Have you ever done something and then it lived on your conscience and it made it hard to breathe, or you worried about it at night, or you were like, oh my gosh, that was so terrible. Well, that eats away at your soul. That eats away at your heart. It eats away at your energy. Just go to that person before they come to you. And what you'll find is most of the time when you make a mistake, if you'll go to that person and you'll say, I really messed this up. I'm really sorry. How do I make it right? You could just say that. You don't need anything else other than that. I screwed up. I'm sorry. Whoever it is that you're apologizing to most of the time is going to say, oh, it's no big deal. It's okay. It's okay. Because when you mess up, you fess up. And most people will just say it's totally fine. All right. So one person said this. It said, I can come up with multiple short-term business ideas. I can't come up with anything long-term. Here's some advice and ideas. Number one long-term piece of business advice is to do a whole bunch of short-term stuff. Some businesses pivot regularly. Some businesses do this one quarter or 1 month and then do this and then do this and then do this. So think about like a printing business. A printing business might have like a printing business that prints, you know, like labels on clothes, or screen printing or pictures. They might do t-shirts one day and they might do soccer jerseys the next. You're not stuck with the same thing over and over and over again. Think about an attorney. An attorney might practice a certain type of law, but no two cases are the exact same. So to answer the question of I can't come up with anything long-term, come up with something short-term. Maybe it's an idea that runs for 3 months or an idea that runs for 6 months. You might go from one idea to the next before something hits, before you stick with something. That's okay. It's a little bit like having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Think about if you're 15 years old or 16 years old and you have like, you know, your first boyfriend or your first girlfriend. I remember I was probably 14 when I truly had like a first girlfriend. Now at the time, I thought, oh my gosh, we're going to spend our lives together. You could imagine how that ended up, right? Though in the moment, I felt like we probably were. And then, of course, 6 months later or a year later, I kind of chuckled at that and laughed at that. Well, the feeling wasn't wrong. The feeling when I felt it was right. Though another day came and I found out that on that day, I felt different. So when you think about short-term and long-term business, treat it like that. Just try something. Just give something a shot. See what happens. Date the idea of the business. Date the idea of running it out. So here's one of the things that one of my mentors taught me about businesses or running a business. What you ought to be able to do is answer this question. And so you're going to want to write this down. If you have a business idea, the question is this: what problem exists that the business is solving? I'll say it again. What problem exists that the business is solving? If you're going to be in a business, or if you're going to be an entrepreneur, or if you want to create things, which by the way, you could work for somebody else and still create things. You could work for another company and still create things. So think about, I love Nikes, shoes, love them. There's somebody who works at Nike who wouldn't be considered an entrepreneur because they don't own Nike, but in all relation to creation, they're designing shoes every day. They're sitting there all day designing shoes and ideas and colors and schemes and different sizes and different types. And well, that's a very entrepreneurial thinker. That person happens to work for a company. So part of the world would say, well, you're only an entrepreneur if you work for yourself. I could not disagree more. There's entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs. An entrepreneur might be someone who goes out and starts a company. An intrapreneur might be somebody who works inside of that company. Though they're very creative, they create things. Not everybody needs to go and start a business. You might be part of a business or part of a company and have your own division within it. Well, that's entrepreneurial too. So I just don't believe in things having to be one way. All right, so someone said, can you repeat that? I don't know what you're talking about directly, but go back and rewatch. So we're gonna send this out. So what I do when I'm watching a webinar or I'm hearing something, if I wanna hear it again, just like jot down 10 minutes in or 20 minutes in, and that's an easy way to go back and find it later. So I appreciate the question. I just don't know what I was talking about when you said, can you repeat it? Back to the windshield and back to the rearview mirror. 95% of your time, you're gonna be looking forward. That's good news. 5% of the time, you're going to need to look in the rearview mirror because it's important what's behind you. It's important what's happened. Though keep in perspective, what's more important is where you're going, not where you've been. What's more important is what you're doing, not what you did. Now, that's for good things and bad things. If you've done something bad in your life like I have and you're ashamed of it or embarrassed by it or it wasn't the very best thing, well, that's okay. It lives back there for a reason. It might be important to look in the rearview mirror so you can understand it. Now, if you think about a car, right? Like you're in a parking lot, you're going to look in the rearview mirror so you can make sure before you go in reverse, you don't hit anything. So you don't hit anybody. That's important. Well, life looks the same way. Things tend to create patterns. So look in the rearview mirror. It's important. But if you spent all day looking in the rearview mirror, you'd never go anywhere because you're not going forward when you're looking in the rearview mirror. So 95 to 98% of your life, your windshield, looking forward. Here's where I'm going, not where I've been. Though 2% or 5% of the time, you ought to look in the rearview mirror. Life creates lessons, and the things that you've done create lessons, both good or bad. By the way, winning is a habit. So's losing. Let me say it again. Winning's a habit, and so's losing. And so what I want you to do is I want you to create little itty baby goals. One of the greatest hacks I could teach you about being an entrepreneur or a business or just a good human being who helps other people is create little tiny things that you could win. I love to win. My guess is you like to win too. Whether it's playing Monopoly or Uno or whether it's doing something outside, I love to crush goals. I love to set a goal and then beat it. So set little mini goals. And one little mini goal might be to wake up at a certain time. Maybe you want to be the type of person that goes, you know what? I'm sleeping in too late. I want to wake up earlier. Great. Set a goal to wake up earlier and then feel really good when you create or when you crush that goal. Now, the greatest thing about that is it creates momentum. Think about a time that everything has been going really well for you. Think about a time that you're like, yeah, that's awesome. And then you get more good news and you're like, whoa, that's awesome. And then this happens and you're like, yes. There's a rule of thought that says when things are in motion, they stay in motion. That's good or bad. Now think about another time that you got some bad news and you're like, oh man. And then you got some more bad news and you're like, oh my goodness. And then some more bad news. And it's almost like nothing could go right. There's an old saying, when things go wrong, everything goes wrong. Well, maybe that's true. When things go right, everything seems to go right at the same time. My point though is this, little baby goals that you can win, little finish lines that you can win. Have 5 of them a day. One of them might be, like I like little index cards. One of them might be help somebody else. Well, great. When you do it, cross it off. It feels good to cross things off your list. Another might be kind to somebody. Great, cross it off. Another might be keep my word. If I said I was going to do something, I do it. If I said I was going to be somewhere, I'm going to be there. You know, one of the things that you get a bad rap for, like in your generation, one of the things is timeliness, being on time. Well, I can't fix that. When I was 14 or 15, someone taught me, they said, you are always on time. And what they taught me was they said on time was 5 or 10 minutes early. So if I was supposed to be somewhere at 4, what I thought was I want to be there at 3:55. Because if I got there at 4, I was probably already late. Because if it started at 4, like you ever walked into something that starts at 4 and you walk in and then by the time you take your seat, you're already missing the first part of the show or the first part of the song or the first part of the concert. Well, it looks just like that. And so I was taught 10 minutes early is actually on time. And so I got to tell you, there's some habits that you could take into your life right now that pay you for your entire life. And one of them is to not be tardy. One of them is to not be late. One of them is and a lot of it is self-respect. Like you respect yourself enough to be on time. You respect whoever it is that you're meeting to be on time. You get a bad rap. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to be 22 or 25 or 26 or 30 or 18 or something. And the people that you work with are probably going to show up late. And you're going to be the only person who shows up on time. That's probably true. You're going to be one of the only people. Let's say that you and 10 other people are all working somewhere, and the other 8 or 9 people are always late. They're always this, they're always that, and you're the only one on time. And the boss or the manager, she has to choose who she's going to promote. Well, who do you think she's going to promote? She's going to promote the person who shows up on time. It's going to be you. There's an old saying that I've said for years: put yourself in the way for good things to happen. Well, part of putting yourself in the way for good things to happen is to be on time. All right, so pricing strategy, I'll come to this in a few minutes. We talked windshield and rearview mirror. What happens if you have so many passions that you can't decide the focus? So this is one of the live questions. What if you have so many passions you can't decide the focus? For an example, like what to do in college. Here's a couple of thoughts around this. Number one, date the idea. What I mean by that is spend time with the idea. And you go, okay, well, maybe I really want to be this. Go and find somebody and spend some time with them. The richest person I know, what he did when he was going to college was, before he went to college, he was in college and he had to choose a major. He went and spent a day with an attorney. He went and spent a day with a real estate agent, and he went and spent a day with an insurance person. Those were like the 3 paths that he was looking at. I was either going to go into insurance or law or real estate. And he went and spent a day with somebody. His parents helped him set it up. Went and spent a day with somebody in each one of those fields and shadowed them, spent some time around them. And what he found was, at the end of the day, he liked the person who sold real estate the most. And then he decided to go down that path, and he got a degree in real estate. Well, today that man's name is Gary Keller. And Gary Keller owns Keller Williams, which is the largest real estate company on planet Earth. He's a billionaire. He's an incredibly kind, generous human being. Though what he did was he went and spent some time. So if you can't figure out your focus, I don't think it's your job to figure out your focus. I think it's your job to understand your focus and why the focus exists. And if you're willing to look for it, I think it'll find you. What's that thing that you can't stop thinking about? What's that thing that when everything is busy, you still think about that? What's that thing that you wake up thinking about? Those are your passions. Those are your things that are coming to the surface. I think your job is to listen. I don't think your job is to find it. It's to listen to it. So go spend some time with somebody and shadow them. Look at how that looks for them. You might find that what you think sounds amazing isn't amazing at all. I know somebody who wanted to become a veterinarian, and so they asked their parents to help them. Just ask for help. The world will help if you ask for help. So they asked their parents, and they went and they spent a day with a veterinary doctor. Well, at the end of the day of hanging out with that vet, they said, there is no way on earth I want to be a vet. There's no way. I don't want to do this at all. They grew up thinking that's what they wanted to do because they loved animals. Well, the day that they went and spent with the vet, that vet had to put 2 animals to sleep. And the person said, there's no way I want to do that. I still love animals, but I had my love for animals confused with my desire to work in this field every day. And I absolutely don't want to do that. And that's okay. You know what? Better to find out now than to find out after 4 years or 6 years or 8 years of college and school and debt and bills and all of that. Better to find out right now. I knew somebody else that really wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to be a doctor all growing up as a kid. And then she found a way to go and shadow and watch. Well, the first time she saw somebody bleeding, she passed out. And she goes, I do not like the sight of blood. Well, guess what? She didn't become a doctor, at least not one that would deal with that. So it's okay. I just want you to listen. By the way, we think sometimes that it's our job to figure everything out. It is not your job, my friend, to figure everything out. It's your job to be open to what the world has for you. It's your job to be open to the opportunities that come by. It's your job to be open. There's a, well, I'll come back to that story in a minute. Let me make a different point. So hopefully that deals with that. I would do this though. When you're thinking about passions, choose one for money. It is really difficult to live life without money. And people say ridiculous things. People say things like money doesn't matter. Well, the context when someone says money doesn't matter, what they mean to say is they mean to say that money won't make you feel good about yourself at night. Money won't be there when you're sick. Money won't hold your hand when you're scared. That's what they mean to say. And what they should say is they should say that money's not important compared to family, or money's not more important compared to morals, or money's not more important compared to doing the right thing and treating people well. Money's not more important than being kind to other people. That's what they mean to say, but they accidentally say something I think that's ridiculous, which is money doesn't matter. Well, guess what? Money does matter. You can't live somewhere without money. You can't go and eat without money. You can't go to a restaurant and order a meal, and then when the bill comes, say, well, you know what? Money doesn't matter, so I'm not going to pay. They're going to call the police. So yes, money matters. People that have money, people that are rich, people that are wealthy, you'll never hear them say things like money doesn't matter. What they'll say is they'll say something like, money isn't my purpose. I don't wake up and work hard for money. Money shows up because I wake up and work hard. And it's one of the greatest lessons that I could ever give you. That if you'll do something that you're passionate about and you become really good at it, and you become better than other people, which means that you might put in more time, you might put in more effort. There's the law of extra effort. And the law of extra effort means if someone's willing to work this hard, you work this hard. If someone will work this hard, you work this hard. And you just say, you can't outwork me. It can't be done. I will wake up earlier than you. I'll stay later than you. If you do 100 push-ups, I'll do 101. And it's not about beating the other person. It's not about you winning and them losing. One of the greatest things about winning is that my favorite athletes are the ones who really want to win, but they want to see you win too. They're going to work hard to beat you, but they want you to be great. So the way I look at the world is this. I don't like as much when their idea of winning is I got to win, and part of me winning is seeing you lose or seeing you do poorly. I don't like that. I want to see you do great. If you and I are competing at something, I want you to bring your A game. I want you to be awesome at it. Because if I beat someone who's not very good at something, well, I don't feel good about that. It didn't take any effort. I need you to be great. Because if you're great and I want to win, I got to be a little bit greater, just a little bit more. But I'm going to hope that I can teach you something along the way. And if you're beating me at something, I'm going to be learning from you. That's what I think about winning. So pick one passion for money. You got to have money. You got to make money. Like you can't just do something and hope that money shows up. Like you have to live. You have to earn an income. And there might be a period of your time that you work for money in a field or a job that isn't your passion. Though at night or the weekend or whatever it is that you're not working, you're doing something in your passion. One of the greatest disservices, one of the greatest lies that you're hearing today from Instagram, social media, TikTok, other things, is that you should love your job. That's not necessarily true. That's not true at all. You know how many jobs I've had to get where I am today that I didn't love? I remember one job, I was cleaning buses. My job, I lived in Juneau, Alaska, and it was like a tour company, and they had these giant buses, and they drove people around to go look at like the glacier and bears and whatever. Well, guess what? Buses don't clean themselves, my friend, which meant that I had a job at nighttime cleaning buses. And one of the grossest things about cleaning buses was about every third or fourth day, somebody would get sick in that bus. And I'd walk into the bus, and you could smell it. Somebody threw up in the back of the bus. Well, guess whose job it was to clean up the throw up? It was my job. I did not love that job. I did not love it. That job was not my passion. I did not wake up passionate about cleaning that bus. That company paid me money to clean those buses. And because I made money to clean those buses, I could pay for my life, and I could buy food, and I could pay for my rent. And then I took my time outside of my job to go find things I was passionate for. Your job and your passion won't always be a parallel line. They won't always be at the same time, at the same place. It won't. They call it a side hustle for a reason. You might work 40 hours a week at a job, and then at nighttime, you might be developing something you really care about. You might be starting a business in your garage or your parents' garage that you really care about. That's great. You still have to pay for life along the way. So if you're thinking about passions, I would choose one for money. I would choose one for fun. Have a passion that's fun for you, that's just interesting, that you enjoy doing it. One for money and one for fun. If they're the same, great. If you could do something that's fun for you that you get paid for, great. But you know what? If you think about like a professional, we'll take professional basketball. Let's say that a kid plays basketball his whole life, and he finally makes it to the NBA. Do you think he loves dribbling the basketball? Probably to a degree, but there's probably days that it just feels like work. There's probably days that person walks onto the court and goes, okay, it's time to work. It's not time to play, it's time to work. Imagine a musician, and they've spent their whole life playing the guitar in their parents' basement, and they finally get a band together, and they finally get out on tour, and they're finally big. Like they're finally at a big venue, a big concert. They sell out a whole stadium. Well, you know what? That might be a lot of fun for them that night. But the 10 days before getting ready for it might have just been boring and practice. Think about someone who sings songs. Don't you think they ever get bored of that song? Of course they do. Have you ever heard a song on the radio and you love it and you go, oh my gosh, that's amazing. And then you hear it over and over and over and over and over again and you go, oh my gosh, it's so boring now. I can't listen to this song one more time. Well, if you get bored of it, don't you think the person that's singing the song gets bored? My point is this: just because you're bored with something doesn't mean that it's not passionate. It just means that there's a boring piece to doing something. There's the monotony. There's the redundancy of doing it again and again and again. All right, so back to my point. Choose one for money, choose one for fun, and choose one for good. Choose one that does good for other people. You can't lose if you're helping people around you. You will eventually get everything you want if you help everybody around you. If you simply find what your friends need, your parents need, your family needs, your boss needs, the people that you work with needs, if you're the person that figures out what people need and then you help them get it, you're always going to get what you want. That's one of the biggest laws of living on this earth. Now, another question was how to stay persistent when you start having accomplishments and you get comfortable. One of the biggest mistakes that happens is someone works, they win at something, and then they get comfortable. Another word for comfortable is lazy. So let's just call it what it is. They win at something, and then they get lazy. Think about a friend of yours that's worked, and they were super excited about it, and then as soon as they got it, they didn't care about it. Well, I could think of times in my life I've done that too. And if you're like me, you're not wrong. You are perfect just the way you are. And part of being perfect the way you are is that there's mistakes. Part of being perfect the way you are is that you do something that wasn't right, or you do something that was wrong, or you learn from something. The issue is this: you've heard the saying, learn from your mistakes. It's not wrong to make mistakes. It's wrong to make them over and over and over and over again. You ought to learn from the mistake and go make some more mistakes. Part of being successful in business is to be willing to make mistakes. Part of being successful in life is being willing to make mistakes. I promise you that your parents, most of them, probably care deeply about being a good parent. But I'll bet they've made mistakes as parents. I'll bet one day they yelled when they should have hugged. I'll bet one day they chastised you or told you something they shouldn't have, or they were too hard on you one day, or they overreacted one day. And I'll bet you that your mom or your dad or whoever takes care of you, I'll bet they went to bed that night worried about it. And I'll bet they laid in bed and thought, oh my gosh, that was terrible. How'd I do that? It's not how I want to be. Just a mistake. Well, the next day they wake up and they get better. The next day they wake up and they grow. When you're passionate about something and you begin to win at it, what you have to do is you have to hold yourself accountable to hitting a new goal in it, or you're going to get lazy with it. And what I mean by lazy is usually bored. Like you get bored with it. Like think about a game that you've played, and then as soon as you were good at the game, you got bored with the game. Well, that could mean two things. One, you might need to set a new goal, go to a harder level, if you will. Or maybe that goal only had a certain season of your life. Maybe you really were interested in playing basketball, but then as soon as you were pretty good at it, it wasn't a lifetime passion. You just wanted to be able to hit three three-pointers in a row. That's okay. There's some things that are just seasonal. You might really care about snowboarding or skiing, and you might work at it until you can go down a black diamond run. And as soon as you can go down a black diamond run, you might go, that's as far as I wanted to go with this. That's just it. I just wanted to learn that one thing and have that one accomplishment. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Though what would be wrong is to continue to give it time and not win at something. Remember, winning's a habit and so's losing. What I want you to do is I want you to continually set new goals, continually push yourself. Think about when you're most interested in something. It's probably when you're challenged with it. It's probably when it's frustrating. It's probably when it's hard. because there's a portion of you that wants things to be frustrating. There's a portion of you that wants things to be difficult so you can overcome it. It's not fun. I mean, think about being 17 and you play a card game with a 4-year-old. Well, who's going to win that card game? Unless it's based totally on luck, my guess is the 17-year-old is going to beat the 4-year-old. And you don't jump up from the table and go, yes, I beat you. You're terrible at this. I am the winner. You don't say those things because you just beat a 4-year-old. You're not proud of that. In fact, if you're 17 and you're playing a card game with a 4-year-old, you probably almost cheat to let the 4-year-old win. Ever let somebody win at a game? Yeah, of course, because you don't care about winning at it. Winning's a habit, so's losing. Keeping your word is a habit, so's being dishonest. Doing something that helps other people is a habit. Only thinking about yourself is a habit. So when you get comfortable, set a new goal. When you get comfortable, you get lazy. When you get lazy, all that means is I'm not challenged anymore. Go find a new challenge. One of the greatest things about life is there's more than you're ever going to do. Think about all the amazing places you want to see on earth. You want to go to Europe or Russia or Dubai, or you want to swim with sharks, or you want to go to the Alps, or you want to go to Australia, or you want to pet a kangaroo, or whatever it is that you want to do. There's too many cool places. No matter how long you live, you can't go to all of them, though you could spend your whole life going to them. Think about all the amazing books that have been written. You can't read them all. Think about all the amazing people that you could have friendships with and relationships with and spend time with. There's too many great people. You can't spend time with them all, but you could spend your whole life working towards it. Well, that's what I'm talking about. All right, so we're told quite often to enjoy work, and I think it's one of the lies. I think it's okay to have enjoyment in your work, but there's going to be some parts of your job that you don't like. There's going to be parts of what you do for work that you don't want to go and do. To this day, I own my company, and I'd be called the boss. Now, my daughter, Emery, who's 8, I said something the other day. I said, I have to go to work and get this done and this done. And she goes, but Dad, you don't want to. She could totally tell by my energy I didn't want to. And I said, yeah, I know I don't want to. And she goes, but Dad, you're the boss. How come you have to go do that? You own the company. You're in charge. You're the boss. And I said, oh, it's because I'm the boss of this company that's why I have to go do that. And I looked at her and I said, Emery, her name's Emery. I said, Emery, there's things that you're going to do in your life that you don't want to do. It doesn't mean they don't have to get done. And you're going to have to do the same thing in your life. You think about a job that you have, there's probably parts of that job that you don't love. You know, there's somebody who owns a restaurant and they've always wanted to cook amazing meals. And they love cooking the meals, but they don't love doing the dishes. But they might have to do the dishes to be able to cook meals again. So the idea that you're going to love everything about everything you do, that's a lie. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen for me either. All right, health matters more today than when you're older. So I want you to think right now, being 14, 13, 18, 22, whatever you are right now, the health and the habits of health that you have right now, they mean more today than when you're 40 or than when you're 50 or than when you're 80. And here's why. If you take care of your body today at 14 or 18 or 20, if you take care of your body today, your body will take care of you when it's 60 or 70 or 80. Think about someone you know who isn't very fit. And they struggle. Like it's hard for them to even walk up a flight of stairs. They have to stop halfway up. Your body is what creates that. And here's what I want you to think. I want you to think of it this way. Think about your body, like your human body. Think about it like a home. Now you have a home that you probably live in. In fact, I'm sure you have a home that you live in. Well, your body is the only home that you get to live in. I want you to think about that for a second and take care of it. Now, if you had a hole in the roof at your house, the rain would come right through. So you got to go patch that roof. You got to take care of it. If the window was missing on the wall, then the rain and the cold would come right in. You've got to have the window taken care of. You got to seal the edges of the window. Well, your physical body looks the same way. What you eat, what you drink, how you sleep, when you sleep, how you exercise, all of it matters. Now, there's a challenge with this. Some people will say that health has to do with size, that if you're bigger, that you're not healthy. Well, that's not always true at all. And it's also not true that if you're small, that you're not unhealthy. That's not true either. That has to do with amount of fat, more fat, or less fat. That's all that means. Now, I grew up as a very chubby kid, and I wasn't chubby because I was big boned. I wasn't chubby because of my genetics. I was chubby because I ate too much food and I didn't move enough. That's why I was chubby. And later in life, it was hard for me. It was so hard for me to lose that weight. It was hard for me because my body was used to it, because I was used to it. And when I was a teenager, and then when I was 20, and then even when I was about 23 or 24 or 25, I didn't take care of it. And so it couldn't take care of me. And at 25, I was out hiking with some friends, and we were hiking up this hill, and some of my friends were like 40 or 50 years old. They were like twice my age. I was the youngest one in the group, and I was the one who had to stop over and over and over again because I couldn't even hike up the hill. And I went home and I said this, I said, no more. Now for me, I looked at the scale, I stepped on the scale, I looked at it, and I was 60 pounds too heavy, 60 pounds heavier than I am today. And I said, no more. It doesn't matter how I got here. I'm going to change it moving forward. Now, here's one thing I want to say about being healthy. Healthy isn't just how you look. Healthy usually isn't how you look. Healthy is how you feel. Healthy is your physical health. It's also your mental health. It's also your heart health. It's all of these things. It's your spiritual health. It's never just one thing. It's never just one thing. So one thing that I would tell you is this, and then move off of health. You have one house. Take care of it. Don't put stuff in it that you shouldn't. Here's the easiest hack. If you listen to nothing else as it relates to health, here's the hack that I would have you to take right now. Number one is this: eat something green every day. You don't need to love vegetables. I mean, your parents have spent their whole life saying, eat your veggies, eat your veggies. I totally understand that. And maybe you love your veggies or maybe you don't. But what I want you to do is I want you to stop looking at food as if I enjoy it or don't enjoy it. And to a degree, it's okay to enjoy food, but your body also needs fuel, needs gas. And so sometimes you're just eating for fuel. Sometimes you're eating for gas. You go, you know what, my body needs that. I don't like the taste of it. My body needs it. If all you did was eat things that tasted good, well, you wouldn't be healthy at all. You'd probably eat cake or pizza all the time. Like you would eat pizza 24/7. Well, if you ate pizza 24/7, you'd get tired of it and you would end up looking like a pizza. So you don't want to do that either. So here's what I want you to do. Eat something green every day. And number two, drink lots of water. Just do those two things right now. Eat something green, drink lots of water. You have a whole lot of life ahead of you to figure out other health. To figure out, do I want to do yoga? Do I want to lift weight? Do I want to run? Do I want to box? All that stuff is fine. You've got time to figure those things out. But if you don't take care of your house physically, then you can't do those things. Eat something green, drink lots of water. Just do those two things, just those two things. Everything else will fall into place. Eat green stuff, drink lots of water. And by the way, you can eat green stuff and then go have pizza and then go have ice cream. You could totally do that. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. But eat something green, drink lots of water. Do those two things. I promise you, trust me on this. Eat green, drink water. All right. How'd you get the motivation to move out at 14? If you were on last week's webinar, you heard me tell the story of how I moved out of my mom's house at 14. I did not get the motivation to move out of mom's house at 14. That wasn't a motivation. That wasn't it. It was a situation. It wasn't motivation. I was motivated to move out of mom's house because I wasn't safe there. And maybe you grew up in a home that you're safe in, or I hope that you did. Some of you have, and maybe some of you watching didn't. I didn't grow up in a safe house. I didn't grow up somewhere that I went to bed safe at night. I didn't grow up somewhere that I was comfortable. I grew up somewhere that I was worried. I grew up somewhere that I was afraid. I remember one time, and what I remember is this, like my parents always did their best. They didn't mean to be bad parents. They were doing their best. I remember one day, my mom was going to hurt one of us. And my brother and I, he was a year older, we were hiding behind the couch. And we were hiding from her because she was going to hurt one of us. And my brother looked at me and he said, Cody, I'll go. And what he meant by that was, I'll go so that mom can hurt me and she can't hurt you. That's the kind of house I grew up in. So time out just for a second. That's a heavy point. If you grew up in a family like that or a house like that, my heart feels for you. And my point for you would be this: you're not stuck with that. You have a whole world you can go and create. You have a whole life you can go and live. Don't let your history be your future. You can break that habit. You don't have to become your parents. You can choose to become your parents, but you don't have to. That's a choice. That's not forced. My other point is this, though, and this is probably the truth for the majority of you. If you didn't grow up in a house like that and you weren't afraid, then you know what? I think something you ought to do today, you ought to go find those parents and say thank you. You call them, you go see them, you give them a hug, like whatever's appropriate for your situation. If you live with them, then give them a giant hug. If you don't live with them, then call them or email them or text them or whatever you got to do to say, you know what? Thank you. Thank you that I grew up in an environment that I wasn't afraid. I grew up scared. I grew up not knowing what was going to happen. So when I moved out at 14, don't mistake that for motivation. That was simply survival. If there was motivation, it was the motivation to survive. So I'm not telling you, be like me and move out of your parents' house at 14. My son's 18. He lives at home. He's going to live at home for as long as he wants to. I'm fine with that. Like, we have some rules around it. Like, if he's not in school, then here's some rules. That's okay. But I would never tell him he has to move out. Not anytime soon. He'll want to at some point when it's appropriate. So don't mistake that for motivation. I don't think you ought to move out of your parents' house. Now, if you're unsafe, you need to tell somebody. If you're in a position that you don't feel comfortable and you're not safe, you need to tell somebody. For me, I had to tell somebody and I had to move. So don't mistake that for motivation. Suggestions on breaking bad habits. The easiest way to break bad habits is to quit thinking about them. The easiest way to break a bad habit is to go create a good habit. Let me tell you what I mean. You get what you focus on. So if you think about something and you think about it over and over and over and over again, you typically get more of it. And so there's an old saying, if you're driving a car and you're on like an icy road and the car starts to slip and you begin to drive towards a tree and you go, oh my gosh, the tree, typically you hit the tree. And so that's where the business analogy of you get what you focus on. If you think about the things that you're doing that are wrong, you typically end up doing more things that are wrong. So here's what my opinion for you is this. When you've got bad habits, understand they exist. So step one is awareness. I know they're there. Like, I do this thing and I shouldn't. I bite my nails and I shouldn't. Like, whatever the thing is, right? Like, whatever the bad, that'd be a pretty small bad habit. Some of us have much bigger ones. I know I do. And so what happens is you own it and you go, all right, I'm aware of it. I see it. And the first thing I would do is go create a good habit. Go do something good. There's an old saying that darkness can't survive in the light. And so I think of bad habits as dark, and I think about good habits as light. And if I have these bad habits, sometimes they take a long time to fix. So my habit around health, I remember I would have been 25, and I hired a trainer, like a personal trainer. And I said, listen, like a fitness person. I said, listen, help me lose weight and feel good and have energy. That's what I wanted, because I was way overweight. I didn't feel good about my body. I wasn't comfortable. Like, I was sweating all the time. I couldn't walk up a hill. Like, it was bad. It was bad. And the trainer looked at me and he said, Cody, because I said, how long until I can be fit? And the trainer, how long until I could lose this weight? And the trainer said, listen, you didn't get like this overnight, and you're not going to fix this overnight either. It took you a long time to get this way, and it's going to take you a long time to fix it. And a part of me was like, oh, like it was terrible news, but it was also true. There's an old saying that Rome wasn't built in a day, that it took centuries to build Rome. Well, bad habits aren't usually built in a day. So when you have a bad habit, acknowledge it. Understand that it exists. Don't bury your head in the sand. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't think, remember when you were a little kid? I remember when I was a little kid, I used to pull the blanket up over my head, and it wasn't to hide from the monsters in my room. Like my girls will like pull their blanket up over and be like, oh, I can't see the monster, like whatever. I pulled the blanket up over my head because I literally didn't want to see what was in my world. Maybe you grew up like that. And if you did, life doesn't have to look that way tomorrow. You get to choose your future. Your past is not a predictor of your future. Your past is not your future. You can break that habit. If your parents weren't loving to you, you can be loving to your kids. If your parents didn't take care of you, you can take care of your kids. All those things that you think your parents have done wrong, number one, have a little grace and mercy around them. Because I'll bet you, just like my parents, they're doing the best they can do. And sometimes it's just good enough to say, you know what? Thank you. You're doing a great job. I just want you to think right now, being 14, 15, 18, when's the last time you walked up to your mom or your dad and you said, you know what? You're doing a great job being a dad. You're doing an amazing job being a mom. You are momming me so well. If you'd like to get things from your parents, say things like that to them. Like that's one of the hacks. That's one of the tricks. Go and tell them how great of a job they're doing. Then ask them for an increase of your allowance. Trust me, you're going to do better with my plan. Trust me. And you're going to get used to telling people good things. One of the greatest tricks I've learned in my life, that isn't a trick, I don't know what else to call it. One of the greatest habits I've learned in my life is to be willing to give compliments. But giving compliments feels a little awkward. Telling someone they look nice today, or telling someone that they did something really well, in the beginning feels awkward. And it's not because it's awkward, it's just not natural. You're just not doing it a whole lot. And so once you get used to doing it, it becomes easy. So I would have you to specifically choose to be good at giving compliments. Make it a goal. Make it a goal tomorrow to give 3 compliments to somebody. Remember I talked about having little tiny goals that you like little finish lines that you can run across, little finish lines that you can win at. Make one of them, give 3 compliments. Listen, if you're the type of person that's always complimenting other people, if you're the type of person that always makes and helps other people feel good about themselves, you're always going to be the popular person. But you're popular for the right reason. You're popular because you help. Not because of how you look or what you have or what you do. You're popular because of how you help other people. Be that person. Think about the person in your school that everybody likes because that person is likable. That person's always saying, hi, how are you? Like I remember when I was a kid in school, I was not the popular kid at all. I was always the unpopular kid. It was terrible. But I remember there was one popular kid that everybody liked, but he was the nice popular. He wasn't the mean popular. He wasn't the good at sports popular. He was just nice. He was just nice to everybody. And he would always walk by me in school, like in the hallway, and he'd say, Cody, how are you? And he was so nice. He was popular. He was a good looking kid. Everybody liked him, but he always took the time to say, Cody, how are you? And I remember that I knew the high school that I went to had 3 floors. And he was going to be on the 2nd floor at a certain time every day before school started. I had no reason to be on that floor, but I specifically went to that floor just so he would see me. And he would look at me and say, hi, Cody, good morning. How are you? And I'd say, hey, and I'd keep walking. I think his name was Derek. And I'd say, hey, Derek, and I'd keep walking. But it made me feel so good that I would search him out because it made me feel good. He wouldn't even know who I am today. He wouldn't even know this story. But my point to you is to go be someone like Derek. Be the type of person that helps other people. You'll be shocked how far you go in life. You'll also be shocked maybe just how good it feels to help other people. It's amazing. When you're feeling bad, go help somebody. When you feel a little depressed, go help somebody. When you feel sad, go help somebody. Go and help other people. You'll be shocked how far you can go in life. So bad habits, go create good ones. Let the good ones crowd out those bad ones. Let the good ones overshadow those bad ones. Now, if you have a really bad habit, if you have a habit that's unsafe for you, maybe jeopardizes your life, maybe puts you truly in violence or something where you could hurt yourself, go and tell someone that you care about. Go and tell someone that you know cares about you. You might have a habit of hurting yourself. And if you do, you're not wrong. You're not bad. That's not true. Just go and tell someone that you know cares about you and let them help you. That's okay. By the way, ask your friends how they're doing. Some of your friends right now are really struggling with all this COVID stuff. Some of your friends right now are maybe struggling with being at home. Maybe they have a home that isn't very fun to be at all the time. Or maybe they're out of home. I mean, I remember I used to go to my friend Brad, when I was probably 12 years old, 13 years old. Brad's family was super nice, and Brad's family always had really good food. And so I hung out at Brad's house because guess what? I didn't have good food at my house. When I grew up, when I was 12 and 13 years old, in my refrigerator, we had certain areas of the refrigerator that my food was, my brother and I. So we had kid food and we had adult food. And then in the pantry, just imagine what this life looks like, right? In the pantry, we had mom's food. My dad was gone at that point. We had mom's food, and then we had the kids' food. Well, the kids' food was always cheap. It wasn't very good. It didn't taste good. And mom's food was the opposite of that. And in the refrigerator, she had like, good, deli meat and delicious food. And we had like peanut butter and jelly or, cheap food. That makes me think about how far I've come in life. And I want you to think about how far you can go in life. You can literally create anything you want. You can have anything you want. The biggest problem is when you can create anything you want, you can create something great. You can also create something that's not great. The world's okay either way. The world is going to give you anything that you want. It really, really will. So be careful what you want. If you want things that aren't good, you're going to get things that aren't good. If you want things that are great, you can have things that are great. So here's my point. So I'd go to Brad's house. You know why I'd go to Brad's house? Because Brad always had amazing food. I didn't have amazing food. So I'd go to Brad's house, so I had amazing food. Go and check on your friends. You might find that you don't even know that you have a friend who was like me when I was 12 or 13 or 15. Now, by the time I was 15, I paid for all my own stuff and lived on my own and all that. So that looked different. But you might have a friend who's 16 or 18 or 14 or whatever. You might just check and say, how are you? How are you doing? And if you have a suspicion that things aren't good at home, help them. Find a way to help them. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it would be, but I'll bet you do. Find a way to help them. All right, so a couple more notes and we got to end in a few minutes here. Social media. Let me talk about social media. Love social media. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the things that you're a part of. There's nothing wrong with social media. Nothing. Twitter, all the stuff that you like. Do more of it. But here's what I want you to do. Add some positive stuff to it. One of the things that I learned about like my own Instagram feed is that I see a bunch of stuff that maybe is interesting or it's funny or I like watching videos of animals or sometimes people falling. I mean, I know it sounds ridiculous, but like the fails, that kind of stuff. I like those things. They're interesting. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? That's interesting. I don't know that it feeds my brain. I don't know that it feeds my heart or feeds my soul, but I am interested. It's interesting. So I'm not wrong. What I will do is this. I'll tell you, go and follow some stuff that's inspirational. Go to Instagram and put in the hashtags about inspiration or motivation. Trust me, all the other stuff is still going to show up and it's okay. Just have enough of the good stuff that shows up. Think about darkness and think about lightness. In my Instagram feed, I've got darkness. I've got people that are talking about things that don't help me. I've got people that are showing things that don't help me. Well, so what? You know what I also have, because I go and look for it, is I have motivational things that also help me. And those things show up. So you're going to be on social media. It's not even, in 10 years, we won't even call it social media. We're just going to call it media. In 10 years, we're not going to call it things that people do today that's popular. It's just going to be how the world looks. So just make sure you put goodness in there. The world will always bring plenty of both. You're going to get what you attract. You're going to get what you look for. Think about that as being a magnet. And so if you're a magnet, you pull things to you. If you're looking for good things will come. So go and follow some good stuff on Instagram. Follow motivation, follow inspiration. Trust me, the other stuff that's like I'll tell you a little secret. I love seeing fail videos. Someone riding a bike and they fall off, whatever it is that they're on, or they're driving a car and it wrecks and it flips. Like I love that. I think it's interesting. I think it's someone on a skateboard and they totally wipe out. Like, it's interesting, but I don't know that it makes my life better. Well, it's okay to watch things that are interesting, and it's also okay to look for things that make your life better. All right, what should you do if you don't care about your bad habits? So this is an interesting question. What should you do if you don't care about your bad habits? That would be through the filter of which they're bad. Do you know they're bad? Or is someone just telling you they're bad habits? You might go, I don't care about it. It doesn't bother me. I'm fine. And someone else says, well, that's a bad habit. Here's my advice for you. And it's the same advice I'd give myself. You don't know everything. And I don't know everything. Do I care about the person that's telling me it's a bad habit? More importantly, do they care about me? If the person cares about me and they say, Cody, that's a bad habit, or you should be careful there, or I think you should, spend some time on this. Somebody came to me maybe a year ago and it was a habit. And they go, blah, blah, blah about my habit. And I was almost offended. I was like, what? Get out of here. And I at first didn't care, but that night I couldn't sleep. And I thought, I wonder if they're right. And as I put more time into it, when I got rid of my ego and my pride, I thought, you know what? They're probably right. That's not who I choose to be. So my guess is this. If you took the time to ask, what if I don't care about my bad habits? My guess is you probably do care about your bad habits. And I wish we could use a different term than bad. Like, I don't like bad or good. I just, things that move you forward or don't move you forward. So forget about bad for a second. Does this habit move you forward? If it does, great. Is this habit helping you or hurting you? If it's helping you, great. If it's helping you get where you want to go, and it's helping you help other people, and it's helping you live the life you want to live, then maybe it's fine. But if the answer is no, and it's not helping you, then forget good or bad. Just choose things that help move you forward. So my filter for myself is this helping me be the type of person I want to be? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, I got to change it. The people that speak into my life that care about me, they deserve the ability to speak into my life. And for a lot of you, it's going to be your parents. And for a lot of you, it's going to be teachers or coaches or mentors, because that's where you are in life right now. Guess what? I'm almost 40. That's still where I'm at in life. So I'm not sure it changes anytime soon. But what I've learned is to pay attention to people that I want to be like. Be careful who you spend time with, because whoever you spend time with is who you're going to end up being like. All right, so we talked about this. Failure isn't final. Success doesn't last. I said it last week. If you fail at something, that's okay. Get back up and do it again. Get back up and try a different way. Failure isn't final. Do you have any idea how many things I do in my business that fail? Ideas that I put in place that fail. Ideas that I do that lose money. I opened a food business probably 6 years ago, opened a food business. I thought it was a great idea. And we were making meals and shipping them out to people, long story short. And I lost $120,000 on that business. That was a lot of money to me. Though when I shut the business down, it was because I had no way to make profit. I had no way for it to be a good business. And I was just throwing money at it. Well, you know what? I failed at that business. That business failed. But the lessons I learned from it have helped me in every single business since then. The things I learned, I looked at it and thought, you know what, and the richest person I know, I called Gary Keller, richest person I know. And I said, Gary, I lost $120,000 on this business. And it felt terrible, right? I felt like it was choking me. And he said, Cody, it sounds like a really cheap lesson for all the things that you will do in your life. At the time, I was like, doesn't feel very cheap. That was a lot of cash. What I've learned since then, though, is that was a cheap lesson, because that $120,000 I lost has made me money somewhere else. So you could look at life the same way, and it might be $10 or $5. By the way, one of you asked about being an entrepreneur. The easiest way to be an entrepreneur is to find a problem and then build a solution for it. Find something that needs to be fixed and then provide a solution for it, and then charge for it. Now, at this point in your life, maybe charging for it is very, very small. I am more interested if you could make $1 than if you could make $1 bazillion. Because if you can make $1, you can make $1 bazillion. Here's what I mean. Maybe you guys could do this. You could buy cheap t-shirts, like $5 t-shirts. And today, like, you couldn't do this 10 years ago, but today with a decent color printer, you can buy the stuff on Amazon that you could screen print and then stick it right on the shirt and then resell the shirt. You could resell the shirt on eBay or at school or on Amazon. It doesn't matter what you do, or on Instagram, it doesn't matter. And maybe your goal is just to make $1, and maybe you spend 5 or 6 and you charge 8, whatever it is. If you can make $1, you can make $1 bazillion. If you can make a profit, you can make any profit. So at your point in life right now, it's not about making a bunch of money. It's about the ability to provide a solution to a problem and capitalize on that. And that becomes your entrepreneurial path. Then it's a matter of being okay with failure. It's a matter of being okay with things that don't work out. If you're interested, you find a way. If you're not interested, you find an excuse. Think about the things that you do and don't want to do. When you are motivated, it doesn't matter what happens. You will move heaven. You will move mountains. You will find a way to get something done when you care. If you don't care, then any excuse will do. Like, nah, I don't feel very good today. Nah, the shower wasn't just right today, so I'm not doing it. Listen, your motivation issue usually isn't motivation, it's interest. If you're interested, you'll wake up early. If you're not interested, you won't care. So I hope that you've taken something from today. I meant to go about 60 minutes and we went 65 or 66 minutes. I hope you took something from it today. My only request for you would be this. If you learned something today, tell me what you learned. My email is codygibson@kw.com, Gibson. Lacey will write this and drop it into the comments. Cody Gibson, CodyGibson @KW for Keller Williams. Cody Gibson @kw.com. Shoot me an email. Tell me something that you learned. If it's appropriate and your parents are okay with it, tag me with something on Instagram. Put something on Facebook and tag me in that. Totally fine. Just get your parents' permission if that's appropriate of your age. If you're 18 or 20, then you probably don't need your parents' permission. But let me know, because that feeds me. That gives me fuel to say, here's what I could also be saying. Remember, and I'll leave you with this last thing. By the way, we'll do another one of these. Lacey, can I do next Friday at noon again? So Lacey's going to check my calendar for next Friday at noon. If you want to do another one of these with me, I'll do another one of these. While she's checking that, one thing that I will say, am I good? All right. So next Friday at noon, if you want to do another one, we'll do another one of these next Friday at noon. We'll send you an invitation. We'll send you a link to replay this one if you want. My other request would be this. Go do something kind for somebody this week. We call it like a random act of kindness. Do something for someone that doesn't expect it. Clean your brother's room. And your brother's like, whoa, what's going on around here? Do something nice for your mom. Do something different for your dad. Do something nice for the people in your life. I cannot tell you how good this plays overall. It's really difficult to lose when you're doing kind things for people. So be kinder than necessary. Here's the other thing is this. Be kinder than you need to be, because you have no idea the fight or the battle that some people are in. You have no idea what their home life looks like. You have no idea what their business life looks like. There's an adult in your life right now who on the surface is putting on a smile, but underneath that surface, they're scared. Their business is suffering. They're not making any money. They don't know if their company's going to be okay. You know what? That person, you just give them an extra hug. You say, you're okay. I love you. You have no idea what people are dealing with. So be kinder than you think you have to be. There's been a day in your life that you struggled with something and someone said something nice to you. They didn't even know that you were struggling, but it made you feel better inside. If you feel better inside, you can do better. So that's 68 minutes. I went a little longer than I wanted to. We'll be back again next Friday at noon Pacific time. Enjoy this season. It won't last forever. Remember, it was school that got canceled. Your life isn't canceled. It was the church that you're a part of that got canceled on Sunday. Your goals aren't canceled. Your dreams aren't canceled. Your friendships aren't canceled. Your family life isn't canceled. The things you want to achieve in your life isn't canceled. That stuff isn't canceled. Everything else doesn't really matter. That's all short-term stuff, not long-term stuff. You're perfect the way you are. You're just right. Go do something kind for somebody and see how far you can take this. All right. Have an amazing day. You're a blessing to me. Bye-bye.